Well, we didn't think we'd have a show leading into a Monday night match, but strange things happen, and there are stranger things that have happened in our game. So here we are, previewing the Bulldogs and the Roosters match kicking off at 7 p.m. And of course, it is Beanies for Brain Cancer Round. Jamie Soward, Michael Chammas back on deck. It's a good round. Yeah, I like the leopard. You guys are strutting that pretty nicely, actually.
Yeah, I think it suits us.
Just matching jacket, you know, let's pull out the old Pooh Brown look. It's good.
Plenty coming up on today's show. We do talk to Mark Hughes and Paul Harragon as well. But first up, we need to talk about the biggest issue in the game. We have seen this game be postponed from last night to today. Aiden Tolman, of course, was at the centre of it, just with a COVID scare. His child was at a childcare centre where a staff member did contract coronavirus. So he did have to go and get tested. He did come back negative. All of the Bulldogs had to get tested in that 50 ring bubble, and they all came back negative as well. So the game will go ahead, but he is in isolation for up to 14 days. Gents, great how flexible the game could be with this. Did they make the right call?
Yeah, 100%. It was at, 6 a.m. Andrew Abdo said he was up trying to make sure that things got planned, and to Fox Sports and to Channel 9's credit, they made the necessary adjustments to change such a big production so quickly. And we got the Dragons and Sharks on yesterday. I imagine the Sharks will be wishing that didn't change, but we're there now. So, yeah, congrats to Nine and Fox for pulling it off.
And Michael, Jamie, big call from the players as well. They're professional athletes. They prepare to play on a Sunday, and now they're playing on a Monday night. Does that hinder your preparation?
Yesterday would have thrown me off a little bit, the 6 to 4 o'clock. But you know, to echo Michael's words, it's amazing that we're in a stage now where we can move a game and transfer it. You know, last year or the year before, we probably wouldn't have been able to do that so quickly. So, as a player, you probably get the extra rest, and you know, it's probably next week or the week after that you start to feel that quick turnaround, especially if you're the Roosters. They've got a big one next week as well.
And a few fans are probably asking why Aiden Tolman has to be in isolation for up to 14 days despite being his test coming back negative. Michael, can you explain that to us a little bit?
Yeah, look, Canterbury are trying to change the length of time. It could depend on how much contact his son has actually had with the teacher that was contracted coronavirus. So the Bulldogs are still hoping that he may be on deck before that 14 days, but as it stands right now, he'll be missing for the next couple of weeks.
So he's in a hotel room by himself for 14 days?
No,
he's got to be at home up to 14 days. Yeah. He's got to isolate for 14
days. He's got to be away from the bubble until he's given clearance from the NRL to come back in.
Right.
Yeah. And now you've been a busy man. Sydney Morning Herald writing a column today, and restrictions are looking like they will ease for players after this round. Is that exciting, and what restrictions are we looking at?
Well, it's exciting for the players. I haven't had so much player feedback on a story in a long time. So, look, they are going stir crazy at home. They've been in, since the competition was closed on, I think, March 24. They have been locked away, basically confined to their home. And when the government eased those restrictions as we've been able to enjoy life again, they have been stuck at home under the NRL strict protocols, the biosecurity measures they have put in place. So now the NRL have spoken to a number of senior players. They are hoping to open up to relax those rules a little bit, to allow players to be able to do more than just go to training, to games and home. They may be able to go for walks to the park with their families or go to lunch at a cafe or a restaurant. So the players are buzzing. If that comes off next week, it looks like Monday could be the first day.
Absolutely. Imagine not even being able to go to a local cafe. That's what players spend most of their time doing, drinking 3 or 4 coffees a day out with the teammates.
Well, it's not just there, it's the families as well. The families of those who have been living with them have been stuck abiding by the same rules as well. So imagine everyone in the household, the players, the officials and their families will be very happy about Monday if it comes off.
All right, and the New South Wales government also did announce that crowds of up to 10,000 people will get the green tick from July 1. What does that mean for our game? Because there's a few clashes coming up in round 8. Will they get moved venue-wise and go to home grounds? Or
those discussions are happening right now. The clubs are saying from July 1 they should be able to go play in their home venues when they open the doors to fans. We're talking about 25% of the capacity of venues that are up to 40,000, so Bankwest could hold up to 7,500. You could get quite a few into Canberra if they're able to go back as well. So the clubs are pushing for round 8 to get back to their traditional venues.
God, you won't even know what to do, will you?
Well, it's great signs ahead of State of Origin at the end of the year and getting back to normality. You know, you'd hate to see a grand final only played in front of 7,000 people, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm over the fake crowd noise. I know it's good for the product, but I do like the...
The cardboard cutouts have been growing, though.
Yeah.
They should stay. They should stay. For the Roosters... No, I can't go there.
We will preview the Bulldogs and the Roosters match very shortly, but first we need to look at yesterday's clash, and the Red V finally got the win on the board. What does this mean for the Dragons? Actually, I do want to get Jamie's thoughts because I'm thinking Paul McGregor watched Inside the NRL last week. Let's take a look.
He should have been playing 5'8" today, Cory Thompson. I don't know if he wanted to play fullback. Ben Hunt should be 9. Every person I listen to is saying that Ben Hunt should be 9, Cam McInnes 13.
What are your thoughts? He listened. It worked. Is it
Yeah.
I told you so, or?
Yeah, well, it's not rocket science.
He rang Mary McGregor today for a job. He wants an assistant coach's role.
They wouldn't have my number. Look, I just... Yeah, you have a look yesterday, it was a different Dragons team, and I think it was off the back of a rocket, a lot of pressure with inside those 4 walls on those players. You know, you heard Cam McInnes come out, but yesterday they actually looked like they wanted to play. And Ben Hunt out of dummy half, a try and try assist. Cory Thompson was in the game, and what it does is it allows a young guy like Adam Clune to learn the ropes of first grade without having to come in and shoulder the load of the attack and all that kind of stuff. You've got your rep players in the important positions wanting to play. Cam McInnes at 13, the way the game's going, he could start the game at 9 and then after 10 or 15 minutes bring Hunt off the bench. And I hear you now, Dragons fans, we're paying him $1.2 million, we don't want him to come off the bench. It's about winning. It's about winning this year and restoring some pride and faith back in the Red V jumper, because you can pay someone $5 million. If that's their best position to come off the bench, they need to do that. This competition and jobs are lost and gained by wins and losses. So if it's best position for him to come off the bench, he comes off the bench.
I think you're actually taking a back seat here. I think you're right last week. He should start at 9, to be honest with you. I think he's a top 3 hooker in the game. Like, we got Josh Hodgson and Cameron Smith and Ben Hunt. He's shown at test level, he's shown at Origin, he can play hooker. And I think, and this is no slight on Cameron McInnes, I think he offers far more in attack than what Cameron McInnes does. And the Dragons have struggled to score points for months into last season. Things have got to change, and I think he's the right man for the job.
That play right there, Cam McInnes can't do that. He can make his 60 tackles, he can run, he's got footwork. He could be like Cam Murray through the middle of the ruck for the Dragons, but he can't kick out a dummy half, he hasn't got the vision. And yesterday, Ben Hunt was engaged for the full time that he was on.
Okay, well, both of you were so adamant that Mary was going to leave the club. Then we see one convincing win against the Sharks. Can Dragons fans get excited yet, or is there a long way to go?
No.
They're 2 points outside the 8. Buy your grand final tickets, we're ready to go, we're back. No, look, to be honest, like the Dragons were good, but the Sharks were very, very bad. Like, there are some serious problems brewing at Cronulla, and the Dragons exposed them yesterday. But I'd like to see the Dragons over the next month and see consistent before we talk about anything changing at the club.
The Dragons have got another test this week against the Warriors side that is everyone's second favourite team. This is a game they should win. They had a game, against
Titans.
the Titans they played this week. This is a game they should win. They had a pretty soft draw coming out, but if you have a look at the next month after that, Roosters, Raiders, Seagulls, it'll mean nothing yesterday's win if they don't come out and play even better next week. You know, guys like Matt Duffy, excellent yesterday. We need to see it for 3 or 4 weeks in a row if you're going to be an elite fullback at this level. Otherwise, the questions are going to come back out. Where's Tristan Saylor? Not even in the 21. Where's Jason Saab? He needs to be in that side. Ravalawa scores 2 tries, but Saab, for me, needs an opportunity.
You touched on Tristan Saylor. Has Matt Duffy done enough? Or do you expect that from Matt Duffy to play a good game every now and then?
Yeah, at the moment, he's probably every now and then. He's fast, he's opportunistic, but have we seen it long enough over a period of time to say that he's the definite number 1 at the Dragons? No, which is why they started with Zach Lomax at fullback, then they went to Cory Thompson, then they went back to Matt Duffy to spark it. So, I'm still baffled at some of the selections, and how they got to that point, but he was good yesterday, so you give him another chance.
The selection changes have changed every week because they haven't got the result. They got the win. Do you expect them to keep that same 17?
Yes.
Would you make any other changes?
I would bring Jason Saab in for Michaela Ravalawa.
And what about Tristan Saylor?
Duffy did enough. Duffy was great yesterday,
Okay.
but the challenge for Matt Duffy is to do it again this week, and then against the Titans they should win, but then they've got 3 of the top 4 teams in the competition.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the opposition, the Sharks. You mentioned, Michael, that they were pretty woeful. What problems are going on in that club, and where do they start for John Morris to fix it?
I don't know if the senior playing group have got enough ownership over their performances and what's going on at the club. That's an ageing roster. It's a good enough roster. We got, you know, Shaun Johnson, Aaron Woods, Andrew Fafita, Wade Graham. It's a star-studded team, and they are. I don't know if the club, if the players there care enough for what's going on at the club. I feel sorry for John Morris in this point because he's got a team there that should be challenging for the 8. They're good enough. The other one I'm mentioning is Matt Moreland. Like, he has come over to the club on mega dollars and he hasn't played football for 18 months. Well, we haven't seen Matt Moreland. We haven't seen the best of Matt Moreland since he was at Penrith. So there's a lot of money tied up on players who aren't delivering. Andrew Fafita, his body seems to be hampering him. He hasn't been at his best for 12 months. So these guys that are taking up such a big chunk of the salary cap are nowhere near what they used to be. So I feel sorry for John Morris because he cannot get the best out of players that, you know, once upon a time were better footballers.
That was a different side yesterday, the Sharks, to the one that ground out a win against North Queensland, where they had to fly up to Townsville on game day and play, and their season was on the line. Yesterday there was no urgency about the situation. Look, the senior players probably didn't have their best afternoon yesterday, and one player that'll be hurting is Wade Graham. He's the sort of temperature, you know, on what's going on at the club. So I think that they've probably lost a little bit of toughness, the Sharks, of what they used to be with Gallen, Luke Lewis, you know, that uncompromising, get in your face, ground out a win. Maybe they're trying a different style now with people that have come in, but yeah, it wasn't one of their finest afternoons.
You mentioned a few of the players you think have lost a bit of the aggression, but what about the halves pairing in Chad Townsend and Shaun Johnson? Are we seeing enough? There's been a lot of talk around Shaun Johnson and he's underperforming. Are they right? Are critics right to say that he is? Or
I think Chad's a mainstay. His season last year, I think he was the player of their team last year. He was outstanding. That was his best season. So he has to be the 7. Moyser looked good last week and he's been injured. The thing with Shaun Johnson is not everyone's the same as what they were in 2014 or 2012. You know, like Shaun Johnson stepping and taking the line on. He's tried to work in a few new things to his game. Last week I thought he was pretty good. You know, in a win that they needed to have. He controlled the game where he could. Yesterday, every critic wants a halfback to run the ball or a 5'8" to run the ball. Sometimes when your forward's getting dominated, that opportunity doesn't present itself. But you'd like to see him more engaging and more on the ball. But he was injured last year too. Like these star players that you spoke about have had long-term injuries that maybe they just haven't gotten right.
I don't think dropping Shaun Johnson is the answer because when the Sharks do score points, it comes off Shaun Johnson. So yes, they want to see more consistency. I don't know if, and you're the ex-footballer, you'd know this a lot more, but would Shaun Johnson benefit from saying, hey mate, in attack, you're our fullback? It obviously couldn't defend there and wouldn't be safe under the high ball, but could you say, Matt Moreland, in attack, you're in the 6 with Chad Townsend, Shaun, you just run free. And that way you get the attacking football, you get him running the ball, he has no choice.
I think you sit Shaun down if that's an option and ask him, but Matt Moreland's got to be on the field as well. They missed him yesterday. He was outstanding for a first game back in so long. So Moyes I think he'd be good in the 6. Whether Shaun can do the job at fullback in attack, you'd have to wait and see. But it has to be a smooth transition. There has to be one voice there controlling it. So if you let Chad Townsend control it and those guys buy in, it could work.
And sometimes critics are pretty harsh too. Like, I know Shaun Johnson, I think he even did say it to you, Michael, when you're at NRL.com, that he's not that man from 2014 anymore. He's progressed his game. He's changed his game. It depends on who you work around and who you're playing with. So,
and look, to be fair, I think the Cronulla's recruitment as well, Katie, like, they buy Shaun Johnson when they had Kyle Flanagan in the system. They got Chad Townsend there. They bought 3 fullback. They had Dugan. You have Moreland. Moreland play 6. It just... They spent so much money on guys who play similar positions and it's just wasted. It honestly is because Moreland was brought to the club to play 5'8". Then you have Chad Townsend there. Obviously you got Kyle Flanagan coming through. I just don't know if they had the foresight to spend money where the money was needed. Yeah,
the other topic we do need to talk about is their head coach, John Morris. He had this to say after their loss.
It came from left field after our win last week against the Cowboys. We were singing the team song up in the sheds and I was reporting on Fox and my job was under pressure, so that was just totally blindsided me. But one thing is I've got a really good bond with the playing group and all our staff, and we're working real hard. We've got some unprecedented challenges around our club at the moment, and we're all working as hard as we can to get through that. We had to release Matt Pryor before the season even started to help with our salary cap. We had to let Josh Morris go. As I said, we've had some challenges there, And, you know, I think the more that the club can all support me as we get through these challenging times, the better we'll be in the long run.
So the rumours started now that John Morris's job's under pressure, and he found out after singing the team song in their win against the Cowboys. Michael, is there any truth to this?
Oh, look, he's under pressure because they're not performing. And the same way Paul McGregor's under pressure, the same way Dean Pay's under pressure. John Morris has got probably the best of those rosters with the players there, regardless of the age. Now, he's a young coach. He's learning on the run. And perhaps there is, you know, some opportunities for the club to look elsewhere. But I don't think his players are doing him any favours, to be honest with you. And if they do look elsewhere, the new coach that comes in will be turning around and saying, hang on a second, have a look in the mirror, because you should be performing better than you have been.
Yeah, look, I think there's 5 or 6 coaches every week that there's a loss there. I mean, Paul Green's in that category as well. With that, you talk about the talented roster. Well, Paul Green's roster's just as good as the Sharks roster. So I found Paul Gallen's comments interesting about them needing an experienced coach. An older coach to come in and maybe challenge those guys that have won a premiership, because after you win a premiership, sometimes you're looking for that next mountain to climb, and you know there's guys there that are on lots of money that probably haven't performed up to their billing, and they're just going through a tough patch at the moment. So be interested to see if they can get out of it.
But is that what's difficult about being a coach in the NRL? And none of us have been a coach in the NRL, so it's probably hard to understand. But every week there is a new coach under fire. Last week we were talking about Mary's head on the chopping block. This week we're talking about John Morris. Next week, I mean, we'll be talking about, we won't be talking about Justin Holbrook.
Craig Bellamy, he's gone.
Yeah.
Write him off.
One more loss. And last week you were talking about the Storm falling out of finals. Like, is it unfair pressure for these coaches? I mean, sometimes it just takes a bit longer for these players to click.
Look, no, because there's only 16 jobs in the NRL.
Yep.
And if you know the path that you have to take, and a lot of those coaches did long apprenticeships. You know, there's Cameron Ciraldo's been an assistant coach since he retired. That they wait a long time for their opportunity, and sometimes the opportunity isn't going to present itself to be the best roster or the best situation, but you die for that opportunity to be a head coach. They understand what they're going in for, and you know, you say that it'd be John Morris this week. Paul McGregor's head's still not off the chopping block. John Morris is there, Paul Green, Justin Holbrook, you know, has inherited a roster that's not good enough at the moment. His head's immediately on the chopping block, even though it shouldn't be. So Dean Pay's only had 1 win. If they lose tonight, Anthony Seibold, like there's 6 coaches every week that you could justify that haven't got their squad performing up to what they should be.
We're all praising Canberra at the moment and Ricky Stewart, what he's been able to do with that roster. We forget this is Ricky Stewart's 7th year at the Roosters. He last year was their first genuine success at the club, making that grand final. And I spoke to him before his 400th game last week, and he said that the club has shown the way going forward. To rebuild a football team, it doesn't happen overnight. And some clubs haven't got the patience to do so, but Canberra, it's taken them 6 years to get where they have.
One club that hasn't had the patience is the Titans. You know, there's some players there that, you know, Justin Holbrook would probably not have bought if he had a blank roster or a blank canvas, but you know, Rebecca Frizzell, they need to stick it out. They need to know that they got him there for a reason. They brought him back from England for a reason. It takes time. 7 years to get to 1 grand final. Yeah, not everyone's Wayne Bennett or Craig Bellamy, where you have 3 of the greatest generational players. Like, it takes time.
Yeah. The other things, and it might have sounded hypocritical earlier that I was sticking up for John Morris and not so Paul McGregor last week. The difference between the two, though, is Paul McGregor is into his 7th season at the club. He has been there for a long time. He has had the chance to build his roster, and this is where they are. So to me, there is no excuses with the Dragons. Whereas someone like John Morris, unfortunately, has inherited that ageing roster, and he should be given the chance to rebuild it. So that's why I might sound like a hypocrite on that, but I stand by that Paul McGregor has had his chance. So.
I don't think you're a hypocrite. It's all right. We'll keep you on for another week. Now let's go to sweet or sour. Jamie, what have you got? That was the worst.
I've rattled him.
I did rattle you.
Yeah, sweet or sour this week. It's sweet. I think seeing the fans back on the weekend was absolutely amazing. Just to be able to have people back in the stadiums. Yeah, people live and breathe rugby league, and to be able to go back there, the selective few that were able to make it out, a couple of people made the trip out to Campbelltown just to stand up there on milk crates, but seeing people back and the passion back in the game is something that I actually love. But I actually have a soured as well this week.
Oh, double whammy this week. All right.
Yeah, because I was going out to Bank West yesterday to see this game, Roosters Bulldogs, in a corporate suite, thanks to SodaStream, by the way. But I was filthy because I had my best kit on, ready to go, and the message comes through from the group that the game's not going to be on. So a little bit filthy about that.
I can't go
So you
tonight.
chose us over them tonight.
I chose you guys over
Yes.
it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Very
I
proud
can.
of you. I'd like to see where we are in the friendship circle. The Bulldogs and the Roosters preview coming up very shortly. But now it is time to preview the Beanie for Brain Cancer round. And to join us with that is Mark Hughes and the Chief, Paul Harragon. Thanks for your time, gents.
Great to be here. Great to be here.
Now, it's Beanie for Brain Cancer and it's been going since 2014. You've raised up to $18 million already with everything that's been going on with coronavirus. Mark and Paul, I'm sure you're both relieved that it's just going ahead this year.
Yeah, well, we ordered our beanies. We do that in November, December, and we're living in a different world from when we ordered our beanies. And I guess the option was there to maybe cancel it, but the thoughts are that unfortunately with brain cancer, it doesn't stop. People are getting diagnosed today, tomorrow. There'll be people that won't make it through the week. So as our small little team at the foundation said, we've got to keep powering. We've got to keep the momentum going. We've just got to do our best, give it our best shot. We fully understand that not everyone's in a position to buy a beanie this year. We've all got different circumstances, but judging by the way this rugby league community get behind us, and thankfully the amazing team at the NRL decided to give us the opportunity. We're running.
Well, I tell you what, it shows the relationship between the NRL and Mark Hughes Foundation, because the NRL, as we know, have got so much on their plate at the moment, and for those guys to still want to go ahead with this, I think it's just incredible. And a fair bit of play should go towards the NRL. It's a great job, son.
Mark, I imagine this has been obviously an emotional journey for you, seeing the success of the foundation and the way the rugby league community has rallied behind it all. For you, mate, what's been the moment where this has hit home, the magnitude of what you've been able to achieve in terms of what you've been able to help people do over the years?
I'll tell you, I think the first time the NRL did the round, Chief and I went to Sydney, and weren't sure what we were going to expect. But it was, it might have been the Wednesday and Thursday before the round, and we just got bombarded. Chief was doing interview after interview. I was doing them. I was in the front seat. He was in the back seat. It was just crazy. Today's show, they'd be wearing the beanies. You'd see out in the streets people wearing the beanies, and I just sort of felt like, this has come a long way from sort of, my hospital bed thought that now this is the real deal. And I know Chief will back it up. It was just madness.
Yeah, we'll add a little bit. I remember one time, because a lot of us, we train every morning in Newcastle for the old boys, and I just remember one time Hughes saw someone wearing the beanie in the early days, and it just blew you out of the water, really sunk in that this thing's going to work. So, yeah, it's been great.
Paul, you and Billy Peden have been instrumental in organising treks. You've been on 4 of them. Talk to us about those moments, and was there one that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, the treks were designed just to help raise money for the foundation. At the start, we thought we'd just raise 20 or 25 grand, and all of a sudden we raised, I think, about 150 or something ridiculous that first year. And I think since then it's been like 1.8.
Yeah, 1.8 million.
Yeah, it's been great. We've had some tough ones. The Everest Base Camp took about 4 blokes down. We had 4 in hospital. We had Matty Johns in that one as well, and he done it a bit tough, John. He was spitting blood. But Borneo was a really good one, where we went from coast to coast, including the Scenic and Death March. We wanted to make sure we followed those tracks of all those soldiers there, particularly Australian soldiers. But the heat there was unbearable, and a lot of blokes went down, including me. One particular day, it was really hot.
Toughest day we've ever had.
Yeah, but it's been great, and we're a little disappointed this year because of the COVID. It looks like we're not going to go overseas and do a trip, but it'll be bigger and better next year, and everyone loves it. It's been great.
It's been amazing. Just got to say that great mate and former teammate Adam McDougall at the Manshake, every year he puts in $100,000 towards our trek. And me and Chief say to him, you got to come with us. You got to come with us and do it. And he thinks that giving the $100,000 is much easier.
Well, I feel like I'm going to throw us under the bus, and maybe it's something that the 3 of us need to look into as well. So make sure you hold us accountable.
3-season trip.
am I just sorry? I'm happy to do it maybe for the 3 of us if you don't want to do it. But if you keep it in Australia this year, maybe we can join in later in the year. Now, you talk about all the support and you sort of can't believe that it continues year in, year out. And just a few of the stats that I was looking at on the Mark Hughes Foundation website. I mean, it's the biggest killer of a disease in our country for children, and 1,200 people die from it each year. Mark, what still needs to happen for, I guess, our country and the government to get the message it needs more and more money?
Yeah, look, things haven't really changed for 30 years. There's no cure for brain cancer. Pretty plain and simple. So we've got to change that. And, we're raising funds. We've got lots of research happening. And all we can do is continue to do that, continue this research, and we've got to find the answers so that it stops tearing apart families. Like, it's the biggest cancer killer for people 40 years and under. So it's tearing apart families right when we should be starting their families and enjoying their families and tearing people apart. So I'm really proud that we've now announced the NRL Beanie for Brain Cancer Fellowship. Now, this is going to be done at the Children's Medical Research Institute in Sydney. And this research is named Julius Kim. Now, our scientific committee, they have got all sorts of entries, and he was the best one for us. So we're very proud that the NRL Beanie for Brain Cancer Fellowship is underway. So that's another set of eyeballs on brain cancer every day. We've got people right around Australia all staring at brain cancer. So we're really confident that out of this, we're going to find the answers so that we've got better outcomes for people like myself and so many others out there now that need our help.
Well, Mark, obviously you and Paul have played for the Knights over many years. I'd like to get your thoughts before we let you guys go in regards to the Knights this year under Adam O'Brien and how much they've changed. And also Kalen Ponga. You had the privilege of playing with Andrew Johns and Danny Badiris. Where does this kid match up in terms of his status in the Knights and what he could do going forward?
Yeah, young Kalen is a super young kid and unlimited abilities, and he started really well this season. I've got to give Adam O'Brien a big rap as coach. He's really bringing them, galvanising the team together. Chief could talk maybe a bit forward. We seem like we're a real team, tough unit that just don't give in, and that's a bit like the Knights were back when Chief started back in '88.
Everyone likes the smell of what's going on at the moment. Adam seems like a real details guy, pulls everything apart to a new level, and obviously come on the back of 10 or 11 years at the Storm, that way of looking at the game and that view is really welcomed here in Newcastle. So, he's a really respectful guy. He's really bought into the culture of the Newcastle way. So, as far as we're all concerned, all the old boys, we're really happy at the moment, and they're just competing. I mean, the last couple of games, where one in particular, we were out of the game, but we hung in there and come back. That's stuff that we really love here in Newcastle. So I think we're pretty happy.
It certainly shows that attitude. Thanks so much for joining us, gents. And you rock the black beanies. We're all rocking the leopard today. I'm sure the Knights boys will be rocking their beanies for the game again on Thursday against the Broncos. And for anybody wondering, you can buy your beanie at markhughesfoundation.com or the supporting Lowe's and IGA stores. Paul and Mark, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thanks for the support,
awesome,
everyone.
Thank you.
I promise that was both of them, but I don't think the Wi-Fi is that great in Newcastle. Either way.
Oh, low blow. Nova Castrian, they'll hate you.
It's a little blurry. They love me. I help them raise money. All right. There's a bit of Thompson trade news. Joel Thompson looks set to join Super League. What do you both know on that? St Helens, allegedly.
Yeah, look, great pickup for St Helens. They get a hard-working back row. The thing I love about Joel Thompson is he's always played the game right on the edge, uncompromising, physical, but it's his work in mental health. I think he's going to have a greater impact when he retires in the mental health space. So very happy that he's taking his young family over there. He'll experience England. He'll probably come back because it'll be too cold. But he was in Canberra, so he's well equipped for it.
He replaces another Thompson. Luke Thompson left St Helens to join the Bulldogs. So it's a Thompson-a-thon with another one.
Yeah.
Katie, you've got some more news?
There's more and more Thompson. But if you want all the details on that, go to nrl.com. Dan Walsh writing that one and keeping track of all the movements there. Cory Thompson is the other Thompson. He has joined, effective immediately, to the Gold Coast Titans. What do you think he'll add? Are you happy or not happy with that move?
Interesting buy. I think that they needed a fullback with no AJ Brimson this year, but they've got a lot of hard work ahead of them, the Gold Coast Titans, especially after the weekend. I thought they were really disappointing.
He's a little fan favourite, Cory Thompson at the Tigers, and the players all love playing with him. He'll add some energy to that team. I think he's the sort of guy Justin Holbrook he'll know what he'll get from him. So it's a little stopgap solution for the Titans to play fullback until Brimson's back.
So why are you not 100% sold on that buy? What do you think they're looking for?
Well, I think it'll be a great buy because he can go to fullback, which allows Sammy to go back to the wing. But there's just, that squad was completely different to the one that turned up to play the Tigers. There's bigger issues than signing a couple of players. They need to have a consistent standard level of play that they need to get to, and they didn't meet it on the weekend.
Okay, well, gents, it's almost time to announce the team lists that are dropping in, I think, about 30 seconds. And you two are going to go to the touch screen when I talk about the team list for the Roosters and the Bulldogs coming out very shortly. I will get your tips real quickly. Who have you got? I mean, is it the obvious, the Roosters? I've tipped the Roosters.
It is the obvious, but you never know. Look, the thing about the Bulldogs is they are gritty, and I think if it was a fast track and the Roosters are flying, it could be 30, 40 points. But maybe this year the Bulldogs, after last week, bit of steel in their defence, I think it might be a little bit more gritty. I think it's maybe 10, 12 points.
20 plus. Look, Canterbury's defence.
He's not playing it safe.
The Roosters, come on. With all that, it was James Tedesco back as well.
No Maria Hargraves.
Yeah, well, look, Lindsay Collins is a good replacement.
You're talking about the ins and outs, and I haven't even read out the team list, gents. Come on.
I'm just hearing along the way.
All right, well, let's go to that. Let's read out the team list for the Bulldogs-Roosters clash. Kicking off at 7 o'clock for the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. Will Hopewadi at fullback, Mick Meaney there on the wing, as well as Christian Crichton in the centres, Dallin Waitini-Zalesniak and Jake Avarillo. Kieran Foreign back for his second game after his 200th last week, having that big time off from the shoulder, partnering Luke Lewis. Then we've also got Dean Britt coming onto the bench in replacement of Aidan Tolman after, of course, the cautionary, even though he did test negative to coronavirus, he will be in isolation for up to 14 days. Now we'll go to the Sydney Roosters and how they line up from 1 to 17. James Tedesco back at fullback. There we see Anne Satili Tupanua on the bench. Mitch Orbison named on the bench after missing a couple of weeks. Victor Radley's elbow looked not to be as bad as first thought. He's back in the mix. And Boyd Cordner there named at skipper. But Lindsay Collins coming onto the starting side in replacement for, of course, Jared Warrior-Hargreaves, who is out with back pain. Now, we're going to our best bit. The boys are using the touchscreen. What have you got for us, Jamie?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. Just wanted to have a look at the two contrasting styles of the 5'8s tonight. Luke Keary, obviously one of the best players in the world, but Kieran Foreign back from injury. Both sides really need their playmakers on tonight. Yeah,
and you touched on Kieran Foreign. He's only 2 games back from that shoulder injury, and the Roosters, no doubt, will pepper that Bulldogs right edge.
Yeah, they will, and it's the way that Luke Keary gets the ball here. You can see that he's starting so tight to the ruck. He's got the 4-on-4 matchup, so he's trying to isolate the 3 Rabbitohs defenders here, but it's Ethan Lowe that he's working on. So as play unfolds, you can see he's so tight to the ruck, but it's his speed and vision that gets him over the advantage line to be able to pick Boyd Cordner up, a one-on-one tackle against Adam Reynolds. That will be the line they're trying to get on Kieran Foreign tonight.
Well, let's take us back to last year's grand final, Sowie. The Roosters, Luke Keary, he's renowned for his eyes-up football. And in the dying moments of the game, when the Roosters need something from their star playmaker, he comes up with the goods.
Again, he isolates one-on-one tackle against BJ Leilua, but it's a different style this time. He's out the back, gets it off Warrior-Hargreaves, and right here, it's a quick play the ball, but if you just see Luke Keary, all his space is looking to the middle here. Tired defenders from the Raiders. So these 3 guys here, they clock off for half a second, and it's a great play and pass by Latrell Mitchell, but you can put it down to Luke Keary. This is why the new rules suit him. He's over the advantage line, and I don't think there's anyone better in the competition that plays short sides than Luke Keary.
Well, contrasting styles between the 2 number 6s. Kieran Foreign started his career as a runner of the football, renowned for that attacking potency, but over the years, he's changed his game a little bit.
Yeah, it's what makes him so great. To see him injury-free and have him come back, great experience for the Bulldogs halves, but everyone else around him seems to fall in line. And you can see here, his threat by being in and around the ruck has get 5 Dragons in defensively, and that organisation helps the outside guys.
What's the advantage here, Sal? We haven't played in the halves before. What's the advantage of Kieran Foreign sitting behind the ruck?
Well, he locks those 5 guys in, but it gives the shape out here. He knows he's coming out to this left-hand side. He's trying to attack these 4 defenders and get them to make a decision, but it's his subtlety, the way that he goes there, to be able to just get out the back. You watch that late movement, and right there, McInnes is still looking in, Sims is looking in, Hunt's looking in. There's no eyes up to see what runners are coming at them, and it's just like shelling peas here for the Bulldogs. Nice and easy. That's what Kieran Foreign does. Straightens up their attack, gets everyone in the right position. So something to keep an eye on tonight. The two number 6s doing battle, both against each other on the same edge.
Well, Sowie, he's picked Ben Hunt to play hooker and he's shown his assistant coaching ability, Katie. He's all over it.
He is over it. I love the use of the touchscreen too. It adds a different perspective. If there is a weakness, though, I want to ask you quickly, in the Roosters side, where are you going to attack?
I think last year, if you have a look at Canberra and Manly last year, they had success around second phase and offloads and that structured, unstructured attack where they have to get to a point but they just push up on the ball. So guys like DCE, Tom Trbojevic, they just play on the ball rather than block for a block, which is what the Roosters eat up. So I'd be looking to try and get second phase, try and get people in different positions to try and get the Roosters, but they are so good defensively.
Yeah, appreciate both the insights, gents. Good work. I want this one back next week. We'll talk to our producer, Chad, hey? All right, it is now time for the Casualty Award, thanks to Go Healthy Vitamins. The Cowboys travel to Campbelltown without two of their stars this week. Valentine Holmes ruled out with an ankle sprain and Jordan McLean also sidelined with a calf strain. Katoni Staggs won't be back for the Broncos for at least 4 weeks. The outside back suffered a grade 2 hamstring injury. The good news, no tendon involvement in that injury. The Seagulls are hopeful Marty Tapau will overcome a dislocated thumb to face the Raiders, but they could be without Moses Sully for 3 weeks after he underwent surgery on a fractured finger. And Cronulla is hopeful Matt Moreland will overcome hamstring tightness to play on Sunday. In other news, Jesse Arthurs is out for at least a month, while Panthers confirmed Kurt Capewell is out for 10 weeks with a grade 3 medial ligament injury. That's this week Casualty Ward, thanks to Go Healthy Vitamins. It's now time for Hit or Miss. All right, first one. Queensland teams will not play finals. Hit or miss? I'm going to you, Jamie. I'm going to you. You're cringy.
Miss. I think as bad as the Broncos have been, I've still got a little bit of faith that once they get Tavita Pangai Jr. back, there's an issue around Brodie Croft. I think that when he went up there pre-COVID, the rules, they needed a structured 5'8" to be able to get Milford the right amount of ball, but they just haven't adapted. And to let that game go last week, that's on the back of the halfback not game managing correctly. So I'm holding out hope for the Broncos, but the other two teams, no.
Michael?
Unless Peter V'landys is bringing the Brisbane Bombers into the comp now, it's a hit for me. I can't see any of the three Queensland teams. Yeah, hit. They'll miss it. They'll all miss the 8.
Sorry.
They'll all miss the 8. I picked, to be honest with you, without... At the start of the year, I looked at the Brisbane roster. I didn't think they were going to play finals football. I left the Broncos and the Cowboys out of my 8, and I have seen no reason why I should change my thoughts on that.
The Broncos may get a little bit of a lift if the crowds come back, because they love playing at Suncorp. That maybe there's some young guys there not as mature enough to fly in and get on a bus to the Central Coast and turn up, for a full 80 minutes. But I think that they can still get into the 8. It won't be in the top 6. It might be 7 or 8th.
Okay. Monday night football should be a permanent fixture. Hit or miss?
Miss for me. I like my Sunday afternoon football. I'd rather see 3 games on Saturday, and I don't like the Sunday 6:30. If you give me the option between the Sunday 6:30 and the Monday night, I'll take the Monday night. But I think the game's got a pretty good balance at the moment.
Okay.
I want it on every day of the week. Live game every day of the week.
I would like it to
Can't
be
get enough
5,
footy.
Yeah, 5 nights.
I think Monday night can work. It's ratings bonanza for the NFL over there. It's their highlight game of the weekend. But maybe possibly 3 games on a Sunday. Really own that full weekend, 2, 4 and 6 o'clock on a Sunday. But Monday nights, I think it's hard. A lot of wives out there would be wanting to get their husbands or partners back after watching 8 games, including mine.
Plus, inside the NRL might not survive if there's a
Oh,
Monday
yeah,
night.
sorry, definitely.
It's gone. It's gone.
Definitely.
I thought it would help for Monday-itis, help people start their week.
That's what we're here for.
Thank you. I knew you were here for a reason. Cameron Smith is number 1 still. I probably didn't read that out right, but Cameron Smith is still number 1. Best hooker in the game, hit or miss?
Best player in the game. Arguably, in terms of how, again, Melbourne Storm, the way that they've changed their game against the Raiders, it was a wait-and-see approach, I think, how they handled the rules and stuff, but they've come out of the gates, and Tedesco's probably number 1. Cam Smith, 1A, 1B, is pretty much the same. Who's questioning that he's not?
Well, before, when the rules changed, people thought that it would be more appropriate for Hodgson to be number 1. But the miraculous thing is Cameron Smith just changes his game. You saw him on the weekend. It's incredible. 37 this week.
He's the smartest footballer that I've seen, and is by far the smartest footballer in the competition at the moment. For me, it's a hit. He's still the best hooker in the game. For the first time, I'm going to say I don't think he's the best player in the game. By far the best hooker in the game. And I don't think that'll change till the day he retires. But in terms of the best player in the game, I think people have passed him.
His greatness is the way that he's been able to develop guys. You look at Pappenhausen on the weekend, outstanding. They're playing without a halfback at the moment. And I mean, no disrespect to Riley Jacks or Jerome Hughes. Those guys are filling guys that haven't grown up playing halfback and learnt the ropes along the way. But he's playing 9 and 7 at some stage.
You made a good point. Will he be a good coach one day? Do you think we're talking about the Sharks and the Dragons. Maybe Cameron Smith will retire and go straight down there and coach.
I'll tell you what, try and get him for 1 year next year because I think Melbourne would be wanting Harry Grant back for the next 10 years, he and Munster. But captain coach at the Dragons.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Okay, last but not least, Josh Reynolds should keep his spot in the starting side this week. Hit or miss? Michael, I'll go to you.
Yeah, I say hit. Josh was pretty good for the Tigers. Brought the energy that Michael Maguire had been looking for. I was quite critical of the decision to drop Benji, and I still think it was the wrong decision. I think the person who needs to come under a little bit of pressure, who has escaped it, is Luke Brooks. To be honest with you, Luke Brooks 2 years ago went within a whisker of winning the Dally M medal, and since Ivan Cleary has left that club, he has gone backwards. I feel Luke Brooks. I don't know if the tough love approach that Madge has there. He obviously works them really hard. I think he thrived under a coach like Ivan, who gave him a cuddle and played to his strengths. Now, you would know, Jamie, you obviously played under Wayne Bennett, and he gave you that cuddle that you needed. I think Luke Brooks needs a coach that builds a game plan around Luke Brooks, where I think Madge has his style and his way, and I don't think it's suiting Luke Brooks at the moment. Yeah, totally agree. Luke Brooks is under a lot of pressure to maintain his spot. If Reynolds will be the 5'8", I think Benji might even be the halfback. If you have a look at that game on the weekend, was there to be won, and unfortunately for Tigers fans, Reynolds did everything he was promised to do and that you knew he was going to bring with energy, enthusiasm, kick chase, all the stuff that Reynolds was good at, he did on the weekend. They were screaming out for a halfback to help take control in that second half, last play options, steer them home and attack and run the footy. And I think Luke Brooks' best footy is played with Benji Marshall at 6 because Benji can take all the big plays. He'll be one of the greatest players to ever play that will come up with a big play. On the weekend, they didn't know who was going to come up with the big play, and that was up to Luke Brooks. He didn't do that. Can Benji and Josh Reynolds work as a halves combination? I think yeah. I think if you said to Benji, we're going to play you at halfback, his kicking game would have been probably nearly gets him over the line on the weekend. Yeah. So
but
I agree
Benji
with
be
Brooks.
Back?
I think there's room maybe for all three of them, but I don't think you bring Brooks off the bench. You'd have to bring Reynolds off the bench and play him at 9, but then you lose all that enthusiasm that he brings in that number 6 role. So the challenge for Josh will be excellent this week, and a lot of those Tigers guys, they were excellent for 50 minutes. But for 30 minutes, they weren't great and they let the game slip away. They should have won that game on the weekend. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that Benji didn't play for the starting side last week. I wonder if Madge has changed his mind after their loss again on the weekend and he gets named this week. I don't think that'll happen. I think Madge will stick with Josh Reynolds and Luke Brooks. I think Benji... They've got 1 week, though. Yeah, well, they play the Cowboys this week. They should go close, if not win that game, judging off their performance last week. But, yeah, I think... They should win. Is that Campbelltown? Not too sure if it's... I think it's at Campbelltown. They should win that game. If they don't win that game and there's no changes, Benji will be in with Reynolds. Yeah, okay. There's hit or miss for today. Don't forget, in less than an hour, kick-off for the Bulldogs-Roosters match with our broadcast partners, Channel 9 and Fox Sports, KO Sports and the Telstra Live Pass. But let's go to Jamie Soward's Power Rankings. Jamie? This week's Power Rankings saw the Melbourne Storm creep back into the top 4 off the back of the form of Cameron Munster, and I haven't seen a player adapt to the new rules quicker than Cameron Munster. The Melbourne Storm continue to get it done. They were supposed to fall apart when Billy Slater retired, Cooper Cronk left. They keep getting better, the Storm. It's unbelievable what Craig Bellamy's done. Yeah, I just love the way that he's playing what's in front of him and being able to play over the advantage line. His kicking game's gotten better, his game management gets better, and without a recognised halfback from week to week, which has been their problem at the Melbourne Storm, Cameron Munster stepping up and owning returning the team is the next step and worrying signs for all the teams and all the people waiting for the Melbourne Storm to fall over, because he looks like he's taking the next step. Another team that's struggling and fallen down in the power rankings are the North Queensland Cowboys. They've got a host of injuries, but it's their game plan and their game style, how they attack. It hasn't changed since they've won the premiership, and they're under a lot of pressure.
They're under a lot of pressure, and that roster is a star-studded roster. They bought well in the off-season, Valentine Holmes, Esau Masters, and they've got a pack, the envy of most clubs. So the answers for Paul Green need to come soon.
Yeah, some of their development players, Clifford, Drinkwater's going to take time, but they just seem to have plateaued and not been able to take it to the next level, and that comes back to coaching. So a lot of pressure on the North Queensland Cowboys. The St George Illawarra Dragons got off the bottom of the power rankings, a host of changes, but I just had a look at their draw the next couple of weeks. They've got some winnable games, and that could prove crucial. You know, in a shortened competition, they get themselves back into the competition.
Confidence can do wonders for a team, so it'll be interesting to see how the Dragons bounce back with that easy roster.
That's this week's power rankings.
Well, I know we've still got one more game to go in round 5, but we're going to skip the queue a few days and we're going to talk about round 6 of Rugby League. There are 4 incredible matchups coming up in round 6. This is arguably the best round, except for when it returned from coronavirus and the break.
No,
it was great to have
this is the best
footy back.
round.
But it was so good to have footy back. We're all excited. Round 6, who is your head-to-head matchup, favourite game of the round?
Oh, no doubt. Roosters v Parramatta on Saturday night. You know, the back-to-back champions taking on, you know, the new front runners, the unbeaten side in Parramatta. It'll be interesting to see how they bounce back and how they work on their attack. I loved Parramatta's patience last week, Chamis. They were in a game where things weren't working for them. They looked frustrated in that first half, but they stuck to their plan in the second half, and they scored some soft tries, but it was off the back of still building pressure and being patient.
And if my research is correct, this will be the first time, if the Eels win, the first time they've gone 6-0 in the club's history.
I hate those stats.
You love those stats.
Why do you hate that stat?
Do you think Brad Arthur's going, oh, it's the first time 6-0, that means we're going to win it?
No, but I think you'd be going, you
That's
duty,
exactly
I'm
right.
6-0.
Well,
Hopefully
it
I get a
means he's the
contract
greatest coach in the history of the club. Better than Jack Gibson.
No, it doesn't. Brad Arthur will want to cap, at the end of the year, he wants to cap a good start off with a premiership.
I'll tell you what, though, this is the game.
Have a look at the
This is
Dragons
game
in recent years.
Right?
Do you think Dragons fans are saying this is the best start in joint venture history?
They were when you were winning games there, when you're winning minor premierships, the best record in the club history. It just builds pressure, and the pressure is building on Parramatta. And this weekend we'll get a test of whether they are the real deal or not.
Certainly
what's your game? Your game of the round, you're agreeing.
Well,
You're
he
going
stole
for the
my
same
game
one.
of the round, but it's obviously the Sea Eagles and Raiders game is the second best option there. It's Tommy Trbojevic, obviously had a bit of obviously came back to the pack a little bit last week. A few weeks ago, we were saying that I was saying he could be the best player in the game in no time. And the Raiders slowly getting used to the rule changes. Obviously, that first week in Melbourne came out. But the last 2 weeks has sort of, as you said, plateaued a little bit, the Raiders.
Raiders on the weekend, their attack, I'm not sure about their attack. It's a lot of hope Jack Whiten runs and scores, and he's just too big and too strong. And while, you know, the first half they looked frustrated, they kicked on early tackles, and they got themselves back into the game through their defence because they were losing that momentum against the Tigers. But I just wonder with their attack if it's developed enough, because you think last year, round 18, Caesar, Whiten and Nico Klokstad only had 10 try assists between them. Now, Whiten stepped up, his ball playing has gotten better. Williams has shown that he's got class, but the last 2 weeks, defence is working out pretty quickly in the NRL.
That's right. When we said that when they played the Melbourne game, that was going to be the reason going forward. Everyone was surprised by that performance. The clubs weren't going to do that again. Melbourne were guilty of maybe not doing their homework on George Williams. Since that game, that breakout match, every club now knows they're on notice against him and they're doing their work.
Well, Newcastle were physical against him, and the Tigers on the weekend, I think they charged down his first kick and put him under pressure. So, the other game I think is an absolute cracker is Melbourne taking on Penrith. Penrith let a game slip last week, and I've got question marks again over their attack and their inability to have shape around Viliame Kikau. And it's all right to have the biggest, most damaging back rower in the competition, and we know how fantastic he is, but there's no shape around him. And as a halfback, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but as a halfback, it's easy to defend one-on-one like that and get help from the inside when you don't have any shape to be able to check in and go out the back, or at least have Villy go to the line and have a player on his inside or to be able to ball play, because at the moment they're just using him as a battering ram when he could be their best strike weapon.
Okay.
On that note, credit to Mitchell Moses though, because he was accused of being a speed hump years ago, And he did his job on William and Kiko on the weekend. He's getting better defensively.
I agree.
That's a massive step in his
It is, and Dylan Brown's been fantastic, and we highlighted that last week in our previews. But if you have a look, if Moses has to check on a lead runner and worry about a fullback out the back to create that 3-on-2, it gets Wanga Blake interested, it gets Blake Ferguson, and then maybe that gives a bit more space for Villy to go to work. At the moment, he's just standing in front, coming up, puts his body on the line, gets help from the inside, and the Parramatta, the defence, it's predictable what Penrith are doing. Melbourne won't have that this week. They'll have Pappenhausen sweeping out the back of Bromwich, they'll have an inside-outside ball, they'll turn it out, they'll give them different looks. So Penrith need to develop their attack if they're to go any further.
I told you, this is an audition for an assistant coach.
I was just about to say.
No, it's not.
Jamie, talk to the camera. Tell Ivan what he should be doing this weekend.
I'm very happy here. I would love to.
I know you're happy, but you have great feedback.
I love watching footy, but I'm just there's teams out there that I think it's down to 5. If you think about it, when you watch teams, there's 5 teams that can win it. There's 2 that have the spots in 6 and 7, which is Newcastle and Penrith, and then the rest of them are playing for 8th spot. But at the moment, the best teams do the best things for 80 minutes, and they're clinical at what they do, and Melbourne bounce back in a big way.
At the moment, Queensland is not part of that top 8 at all, but that's all we have time for, gents. Thanks for being back this Monday. We will be back again next Monday. Make sure you get your Beanie for Brain Cancer round, of course. All of that money goes to the research of brain cancer, and you can catch all the action of tonight's Bulldogs and Roosters match on Fox Sports, our broadcast partners. But tune in tomorrow at 3:55. Zach Bailey will host Team List, of course, with Brett Camorley and Robbie Farah to discuss the ins and outs of round 6. Now, before we go, the game did lose a legend in Noel Kelly. He passed away. He was a Hall of Famer aged 84. Some did class him as one of the toughest in the game. So we leave you with highlights of his career, and we send our thoughts to his family and friends.
One day I flattened someone or hit him on the chin at Pratton Park, and next and as I turned round, I looked back and his dad is helping him up, you know. And at half time I said, listen, I'm not knocking him down for you to pick him up, you silly pig.
And West have possession. There goes Kelly downfield, number 12. Hard man to bring down is Kelly, but he makes the ball do the job.
Ball's picked up from the ruck by Kelly. The Australian hooker is racing through here like a 3/4.
And Kelly's going on his own, and going is knocked down. No, Kelly on his own. How simple can it be?
He hits it, he's got it!